Delighted to have Grant Lang, the founder of Mozzo Coffee.
I wonder where you were going with that for a second.
The founder of Mozzo Coffee on the sofa. I just said, just off camera, I have no idea where this is going to head, this podcast. I'm not going to script it, we're just going to have to go with it. Because I know when we get together, we can bounce around all sorts of topics.
Lucky I trust you, Josh.
Well, lucky I trust you. I mean, I've got some coffee just to your left-hand side, and I'm just hopeful that you don't spill it on this like brand spanking Sunseeker. You get me in trouble. So there's a lot of
on a Sunseeker yacht with an espresso. I'm expecting George to turn up in a minute.
So there's a lot of mutual respect for sure, hopefully. So why don't we just start with a quick introduction to yourself and tell us about Mozzo Coffee.
My name's Grant Lang, founder of Mozzo Coffee. Started my journey in 2005-06, and it's been quite an adventure. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, but it's always been fun.
So 2005, did you say 2005, 2006?
Yeah, I think it was October the 2nd, 2005, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, don't know why.
What's the brainwave about going into coffee? What were you doing before? You're a young man now, so you were super young then to go into business.
Yeah, so I was at university, grew up in London, went to university in Southampton, wasn't brave enough to say, Mum, Dad, don't know what I want to do. So I went to university and probably just started having too much of a good time. Was working in a bar, spending more time in Southampton's bars and nightclubs than I was in lectures, But I just came up with the idea, wanted to do my own thing. Southampton had a really good scene back in kind of the early 2000s. There was some cool guys and girls doing some things in clothing, music, bars, nightclubs. And I was like, well, I want to do something. And there'd been an explosion of coffee. I'd say explosion. Kind of coffee was really starting to take off in London, the early 2000s. And that wasn't happening in Southampton. So I tried to convince a bank manager to lend me the money to open a cafe. He said no, so I used my student loan cheque to buy an Indian rickshaw. We had a customer who his business is just starting, was selling Indian tuk-tuks. So I used a student loan cheque to buy a tuk-tuk, and then...
Do you know how much that cost you?
I think it was 4.5 big ones.
Okay, that's quite an investment.
Yeah,
out of the student loan.
Yeah, and then I made a really bad decision. I spent about 4 times on the website, but you are, I guess, naive. In fact, our first website's still the favourite one we've ever had. Won't be soon in April when finally our new website is launched after a year of pain.
So we're talking like the setup cost generally around 20 grand then?
Yeah, I
grand on that
think I set
16.
Mozzo up for about 25-30k.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
What did you study at uni?
Business management and marketing.
Okay. I was going to say study loosely because you were out gallivanting and enjoying yourself.
Just my advice to anyone that wants to start their own business, get out and do it. Someone once said to me, there's 2 ways to start a business. Either get out there and make mistakes with your own money, or, take the option of making mistakes with other people's money, learn for however many years, and then start yourself.
Nice. So you're watching other people, like you said, London Coffee, buy the tuk-tuk, build the website. What's the journey of building a coffee brand from there on, really?
Well, the word Mozzo came from the world of boats, actually, where we're sat today. So I didn't write a business plan. I called it the hub of coffee art community. And I wanted it to be a place, I wanted it to be a place that respected the environment, respected the local community, promoted the work of emerging artistic talent. And because I had a lot of friends who were kind of designers and artists at uni. And so looked up the word hub in the Italian dictionary, saw the word Mozzo, which means deckhand, someone who cleans boats. So when we finish today, I will give it a good clean. Tell Sunseeker, we got a professional. And saw the word Mozzo, IP'd it, and went from there.
Okay. Fascinating. Great, like the origin of the brand. What about building your first coffee product?
Blend.
Yeah, blend. How do you go about even doing that?
Oh, you always need a lucky break, don't you? So it was like, Mum, Dad, I've got 2 letters here. 1, I've got my peddler's licence. 2, they've asked me to leave university. So I'm sure my parents were delighted. And when the dust had settled, they said, what do you know about coffee, son? I said, absolutely nothing. My dad had a small marketing business when I was a kid. It never did that well. He had a design and exhibition business that did okay. But when they moved out of their offices in London, the marketing business, a company called DR Wakefield, unbeknown to us, moved in. I was 9 or 10. And so whenever I was 20, 21 or something, and my dad said, why don't you give this guy a call? I think he's a tea merchant. He might know something about coffee. So I called DR Wakefield. Unbeknown to me, they are the leading independent green bean merchant in the UK, second, now third generation family business, first supplier to Costa when Costa had one store. What Simon, his father sadly passed away, don't know about coffee is not worth knowing. So this kind of kid that I was probably still a spotty teenager, basically turned up at Waterloo Station to meet Simon under the clock, and he took me for a coffee and liked me or felt sorry for me. And from my first meeting with Simon at DR Wakefield, he helped me build the first Mozzo espresso blend, and it just went from there.
Wow, what a connection.
Yeah, and he's still, that we buy 90 to 95% of our coffees from them. Just amazing people. Yeah.
Man, that's fascinating. And what about, so talk to me about creating a blend. Like, how long from the tuk-tuk and the investment and meeting him to you actually selling your first product?
Oh, I think that took about 6 months. Maybe longer, actually, because my parents bought me some coffee lessons for Christmas in 04, 05. So yeah, that would have been from like January 05 through to October 05.
Do you remember where you sold your first Mozzo?
Oh, I was in Hoglands Park in Southampton. It's glamorous, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
And I upset the ice cream seller because he was selling instant coffee, and he literally came over. It was like the ice cream wars.
Yeah.
I think I was threatened by Southampton's mafia when it came to ice cream vans, and they were, I mean, I wasn't
was that
selling.
always the place where you'd drive the tuk-tuk to, cycle?
That's not the place I dreamed to be. No, It wasn't like my ambition. But no, I was actually, I had some ups and downs with Southampton City Council, speaking openly. So I was verbally promised some pitches in the city centre, but obviously when big high street brands that pay large rates find out that a upstart's going to set up his little solar and wind-powered coffee cart on the pedestrianised areas of Southampton, they probably lean on the powers that be, and suddenly promises that you were made disappear, and you haven't got them in writing, and you're naive enough to think that's the way the world works. Yeah. So I was sort of shunned from the pedestrian bit of Westquay to the park.
Right, okay. And how long were you in the parks of Southampton, I guess?
I was in the park, I think 2006, Dan Crow and the A-Space team let me pop it under the arch in the Bargate. So they were, in the early years, Dan and the team at A-Space did so much for us. Loved what those guys were about, what they did with the vaults, and again, what they were trying to do to the artistic community, the grassroots community in Southampton was really important.
Take me through the growth journey of Mozzo. So those being the early days, and obviously how you founded the business. But that's back in, that's almost 20 years ago now, right?
Thanks. Yeah, cheers, reminded
Sorry,
me.
mate.
No, it's all right. Still trying to cling on to being the spotty teenager, but it's gone.
Mate, you're looking good, I've got to admit.
Yeah.
I'll have to get your secret in a minute.
Oh, it's, don't know.
It's all the running you do, isn't it, to be fair? I know you're a big runner.
Yeah, not enough to... Well, I try. Anyway,
let's go. Let's stick with the journey. Talk us through the growth journey of Mozzo.
Glad this is a podcast, not on camera.
It is on camera, don't
worry. Is it? Oh, fuck, yeah. So people will realise you're bullshitting when you say he's looking good. Okay. So 2005-06 was our first trading year, but we only traded till April. So, sales was small. I think the thing that very early on, people loved how we did, or how we were trying to do what we did. So when we launched, buy 4 coffees, get 1 free on a Friday, put 10p in a pot, let people choose where the money was spent for a local initiative. Wasn't plastered our logo all over the cart. We were selling artwork. I remember when they were building Westquay, the director of a very well-known, established high street supermarket. It's very interesting what we're doing with our loyalty scheme. A couple of years later, they launched a green token scheme. And it's like anything in life, isn't it? When you're starting a business, you look to the big boys for inspiration. So I studied Illy, Starbucks, Nespresso. I studied them all to find my edge, to be like, how can I learn from what you do and just do it differently? Whether it's doing it, sort of from an environmental stance, a social stance, really trying to put a smile on people's faces. So we didn't make any money in those early years. We made losses, but our revenues grew reasonably quickly. I guess I was able to adapt. So I did a second coffee cart with Coventry University in, I think, 07, 08. So we had the one in Southampton, the one in Coventry. And then people were saying, can we serve your product? So local cafes, bars, restaurants. And eventually we started kind of letting the brand go. So we started supplying local cafes, bars, restaurants.
How did you find that transition, like B2C moving into the the B2B space?
I think the initial was getting over, learning to let go. Like, I'd created this coffee blend. I was really proud of it, possibly too proud of it. And And for a while...
What makes you say that? I'm too proud of it.
I think you can be too proud in life and in business, can't you? You can be precious to a point where it's actually going to hold you back.
Detrimental. Okay.
Yeah. And you've got to put ego away. You've got to let other people...
You become the bottleneck maybe sometimes to growth, right?
Yeah. And you're asking that...
Let it fly.
As a founder, as a leader, you ask yourself all the time, am I the problem here? Why isn't this not flying? Why is it not working? And you start with yourself. If you don't start with yourself, and you start with whoever it might be, your team, your suppliers, you're looking in the wrong place, I think. And started sharing it locally, and then...
That must be a lovely feeling, by the way. You know, these coffee houses and distributors coming to you and being like, look, Grant, can we sell you your own coffee?
I never sold him anything in my life. I mean, my dad was really supportive. He let me get on with it. But he did say at some point, he said, if you're not going to kind of study on, and if you're not bright enough to be employed by someone, this thing needs to at least pay your rent. So I realised, okay, these tuk-tuks are going to be hard work to scratch a good living out of them. They're a real lifestyle business. And also if you want to make impact, so if you want to have a positive impact socially, if you want to change something environmentally, you've got to have a bit of scale. You've got to have some, especially in a commodity like coffee that is vast, second biggest commodity in the world. So started sharing it locally, and then got a lucky break. I think the executive chef of Four Seasons Hampshire tried our coffee at Bridge Patisserie in Winchester. So we had Bay Leaf's larder in Chandler's Ford and Bridge Patisserie in Winchester, two of our earliest adopters. You got Sarah and Moira, mad as two hoots to give. I think I turned up on a BMX. Literally, I was I just was rocking around on a BMX in those days, and they either felt sorry for me or, they said, yeah, we'll stock Mozzo, and they were working with brands like Illy, Segafredo.
It's amazing on that, as you talk to founders about their journey. There's always, a little bit of, whether it's positive discrimination or always people give you a break. Do you know what I mean? You're out there hustling. You've got to have a break. You're out there hustling enough.
You've got to have a break.
You look back on your journey and be like, I'm really grateful to these people for giving me a chance, because they gave me a chance. I put it in their coffee shop, and by the way, then the Four Seasons chef comes in, tastes it, and he's like, that moves you on to the next
I've never heard of Four Seasons. My phone went. Sorry, hello, Grant speaking. Cyril Paneer, sorry, very bad. And it was Cyril Paneer, executive chef of Four Seasons Hampshire. I was like, started
Googling Four Seasons.
My throat dried up. I was like, oh, sorry, you want me to come and make you coffee, Cyril? I turned up in their drive. Of course, I didn't drive into the tradesman's entrance. I drove to the front door, and I had a battered Fiesta. It was about 17 years old. Concierge, like, can I help you? Like, are you lost?
Is this the one up in Hook?
That's it. Yeah, I walked up there at the front door.
It's a nice place, isn't it?
Yeah, and
really
it's me,
nice.
Devaluing the place. It's like, I've come to make Cyril a coffee. I think his line was, I don't care who you've come to make coffee for, you park that round the back. And Cyril, so I made Cyril and his team a coffee, and he said, filter coffee? I said, I don't have any filter coffee, chef, because I had a little tuk-tuk that just had espresso, and so we built our first filter blend with Cyril. So we built it with him, and he built it, and he took us about 3 months back and forth. I'd go to London, get samples, build it, come do a tasting at the hotel, and then he did a dinner for 200 people, and he said, we're going to serve your filter coffee. And if they like it, you're in. If they don't, you're out. I was like, oh, fuck. I remember
sleepless nights.
I was sweating. I was out back, and they had a coffee machine that I couldn't really control. And then Cyril would go around the table and ask them if they liked it. And he said, we'll give you a crack. And they're mad. Cyril, Karen Iad, Lee Kelly. I employed about 1.5 people. I think I don't know. I don't know how. It just was crazy. So Four Seasons Hampshire gave us a lucky break. And then
I guess that gave you a lot of brand reputation and credibility then
in the industry.
Forward, right?
Didn't give us any brand visibility, and that's something that moving into B2B, it's sometimes hard to get brand visibility. You can see we've just done the rebrand now, and a lot of that rebrand is about how can we build a brand. We don't own the hotel; it's not our space. You got to respect that it's not. You have no control over those environments. No. So we've got to build a brand.
So not everyone knows they're necessarily drinking Mozzo, right?
No,
is your point?
But you build a network.
Yeah.
And then Karen Iad, the F&B director, left Four Seasons Hampshire, and they shut Four Seasons Park Lane, one of their premier hotels in the world. They spent 200 million on a 4-year refurb, and Karen gave us an intro to Park Lane. Remember the Italians, they brought the whole chef brigade over from Italy. Head chef was an beautiful Italian man, fearsome but beautiful. Then he had some crazy sous chefs and stuff, and they were like, never heard of Mozzo. We want Illy, we want Lavazza. We got a 12-month deal. Karen said to me, you mess this up, you're out, because quite rightly I like my job here.
Yeah.
12 months later became 10 years, and that Park Lane gave us a kind of kick on into London, and then people move around. You know, then someone moves to Hakkasan restaurants, and you know, if you treat people the right way, when you mess up, hold your hands up. When you don't take too much credit when it goes well, and that's how we've grown in hospitality, is purely through referrals. Another person I should mention is someone who you work very closely with and team at Chewton Glen. I think the chef there, let me make him a coffee when I don't think I employed anyone. I don't know how I talked my way in. And I just, again, so nervous, turning up with this little one-group machine, you know, busy kitchen, made him coffee. And I'd write to him every year, every 6 months, we'd chat. And then he phoned me up one day, he said, you've not changed suppliers for 25 years. We're changing. This is your one shot. And like my life flashed before
great
me.
persistence, by the way, and like the writing letters and just making sure that you were hustling.
I love a letter.
Okay.
Like, I'm not a... You'll see, if you ever go on Mozzo social media, we'll shortly be advertising for a digital marketing manager. We've got to get that part of it right. We've done the rebrand. I'm old school. Love a letter, love a pigeon. Yeah. I want to go back to a Nokia 3210.
I like it. Well, no one's doing that these days, so at least you're standing out as well, right?
Apparently Michael O'Leary, who runs Ryanair, runs a Nokia 3210. I don't know if he wants to phone up Bizpedia and confirm that, but I've heard. I mean, he's
Michael,
probably
if you're listening to this, please do just let us know, okay?
Please do. And Michael, can you come and step in, please? Because you probably know what you do.
Going back to the hospitality chain, who are you looking after now then? Like, and geographically, where are you covering?
So, who are we looking after? We're still working with Bridge Patisserie, Bay Leaves. And never forget where you've come from. So today, sitting with you, there's Matt and JP are at the local produce show in Hampshire. It's the first time. It's the only trade show we do. It's been a member of Hampshire Fair since we started in 0506. There was one coffee company in 0506, that's Mozzo. There's now probably 10 or 20 in Hampshire Fair. You know, there's been an explosion of coffee roasters and coffee companies. But never forget where you've come from. And that's something we always try and remember at Mozzo. And so we've got some amazing partners in Hampshire, work with the likes of the Chewton Glen Hotel Group, so we got an opportunity to work for Luke Matthews and his team at Chewton, and then Andrew Stembridge has allowed us to extend that to iconic luxury hotels. I'll never forget making coffee for the Godfather, Danny Peccaleri, owner of Exclusive Hotels.
Right, okay.
Oh, fuck me. I met him, so we threw the kitchen sink at this tasting.
When did you meet him? How long ago was this?
In the toilets.
Okay.
Half naked.
Okay.
It was a fucking
Right,
disaster.
stop now, Grant.
No. So we have a golden rule at Mozzo. We don't send out samples.
Okay.
So if no matter what your hotel, what your restaurant, so we don't work for them, but we have made coffee for the Fat Duck, and they were like, "Can you send us samples?" It's like, we don't send out samples. I think the person, it wasn't Heston on the phone, but I think the person's used to getting what they want when you say the Fat Duck. And we're like, look, if you won't let us come and make you a coffee, then we're not the partner for you, because everything we do is direct. We don't do any distributors, we don't do any third parties, so when we get it wrong, it's on us. When we get it right, it's probably on the people we work with.
Mate, I love your strength on that, by the way. I
Yeah,
think it really exudes confidence. Like, if I'm hearing that down the line, I'm like, these are the guys I want to work with. I guess my question to you is, have you always been that way, and that assertive, or is that something you've learned over your journey?
No, we've always, because I started from the coffee cart, and because I made every coffee, and because in that coffee cart I've got a manual lever machine, which you get great guns, like, because you've got to give it the old heave-ho, but I just think, I love businesses that stand the test of time. I want Mozzo to grow, but I don't want it to grow and burn. I don't want it to grow and go bang. I've got a gentleman that we both know. He had a coffee business. It no longer exists. He has a great fish business now. Brilliant. He's the right character. Now, I haven't ever built Mozzo with an exit plan or built it to sell it. I just bought it.
You love it?
Yeah, I just...
Passionate about it, driven. So the journey going into the Four Seasons, lean into the bigger distribution, some of these great chains. I mean, you're really working with some of the best in the business, right, from a hospitality perspective.
Yeah, in London we worked for Hakkasan, and then we got another lucky break. So 2015, we made coffee for Citizen M Bankside. They're a Dutch company, very well financed. They had one hotel in London and one in Glasgow. They had 2 maybe in Paris, none in America. No, 1 in Times Square. They had about 6. And so we made coffee for their one hotel in Bankside, started working for them there 2015. Then they said we can't find a coffee anyone to do coffee training in Paris? Will you do it? So we said yes, because we've always really invested in training, and that's how we've grown. We've said the best way to sell more coffee is to serve good coffee, because if you like it, you'll buy another one. You're not going to buy a bottle of wine a second time if you didn't like it. So same with coffee, right? It's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Pretty fucking simple. People are like, oh, give me this, give me that from marketing. You're like, just serve good coffee and
make sure the quality of the product is great, right?
And it will grow steadily.
Yeah.
Exactly. Unless you're hitting the supermarket and you just want to make a big splash. But so we did their coffee training in Paris, and then about a year later they said, do you want to supply Paris? And this was if I'm allowed to mention it, this was pre-Brexit, when you could roast coffee in Southampton and ship it to Paris relatively easily. And so we said yes. And so we launched in Paris with Citizen M Hotels. We opened a French boutique in 2019, 2020 in the COVID years, which was...
Great timing.
Good, perfect timing.
We'll get on to COVID, don't worry.
And then I think I'm getting ahead. We launched in Paris with them initially in 2018. And then in 2019, they were having some problems with their partner in America, and they wanted to grow. And I said to him, we'll do that for you. And he went, sure? I went, yeah, we'll do it, but I'll just do the East Coast because of time difference. And he said, okay. I didn't think he'd say yes. He went, you can do it, but you do everything. I went, okay, fine. And he was like, we're going 25, 50 hotels in America, which is still tiny. There are hotel chains out there with 2,000 hotels plus, So we were like, fuck. So we've got...
Great to be getting Mozzo across the pond.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lady this week, Tuesday, stay at Mayfair Townhouse, right?
Yeah.
In London. She had a Mozzo capsule. She's Philadelphia, obviously just got to the Super Bowl, bit of the old Rocky, because I am that age, love that movie. So Philadelphia is one of the cities we're thinking about in terms of building our roastery out in the US in the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. This lady's like, gets in touch going, hi, just landed back in Philadelphia, tried your coffee in London, fucking loved it. Can you send to the US? No problem. We work with Citizen M Hotels, they're in these cities, they're not yet in Philly. We'll see if we can ship to you. We got a guy that we ship to in San Francisco. We ship him our coffee bags because he's like, tried him in London at Lock Apartments, and he was like, love it. How much to ship out there? I was like, well, the coffee bags are this, like say 35p, 40p each, but the shipping puts them up to like $3 each. He went, fine, I'll take it. So we're shipping out to this tech company. He's like, look, if I go to Starbucks, it's $5 a day. He was like, you send it to me. I don't have to leave. He said it's $3 a day.
And I love it.
And you got the Mozzo brand in San
Francisco. It must be really fulfilling for you to have those stories and does that not make you...
It's actually learning to let go that's fulfilling. And it pops up. And then you see it somewhere. I remember the first time I saw a Mozzo branded takeaway cup in the street as litter. And I can't remember who I was with. I bent down, pick it up, and this guy's on a fucking litter pick. Yeah. But you sometimes see them now in random places. You're like, oh.
I love that. Do you know what, Citizen M, I went in... Got to give them a shout out because you put me onto Citizen when you were telling me about you doing Paris and expanding across the East Coast. So my first date with my partner, I met her in Budapest in a bar, and then our first date was in Paris, and I stayed at Citizen M. So the Citizen M have got a lot to be
And you know what?
Thankful for. I'm now getting married to her, so fair play Citizen M.
Fair play Citizen M.
Our first date.
Yeah, we'll see.
Nice hotel, nice chain, with all the Netflix and the lighting and stuff like that. Really modern, really good brand fit for you as well.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Really
they do
cool.
it really well.
Really cool.
They do, and they're continuing to innovate. And I think they are an example that even at their scale, you can put people first. They are hugely backed, VCs, pension funds, governments. But they're putting people first. They genuinely care about their people, and as a supplier we feel respected, we feel under pressure to do a good job. You should never feel comfortable as a supplier. I think that's wrong, but there is, over the years, we're getting braver of saying to people, actually this relationship isn't a partnership. You're not getting the best out of us, but also we're not getting your respect. We'll earn it, but give us a chance to earn it. And I think just the challenge that Citizen M have given us, both in terms of the expansion.
How many sites have they got now?
So
you're looking after.
So we're doing, I think they're 13 in the US currently. That'll be about 15, 16 by the end of the year. You've now got 4 in London, Glasgow. We've got 4 in Paris, 4 in Paris, about to go to 5, and then we're in discussions for some exciting European cities later in the year. So, we're just trying to do. Brexit's been a headache. I'm sure for many businesses, both bringing in and exporting. So we're currently doing and I've grown to really like the Dutch and their kind of approach to life and to business. Spend a lot of time in cities like Rotterdam and Amsterdam, so very lucky there. And we're about to do a deal with a Dutch company where they'll do all our European distribution, including us sending it from Southampton to Rotterdam and then from Rotterdam to Dublin. But we won't. I mean, we got no other way of.
You're getting a fair few miles in there. A lot of travelling, a lot of nice places.
Yeah. Best places though are the best places are the places that. Yeah, the best places are not the major built-up cities. Yeah, coffee places.
Okay, so the journey, the growth journey going into citizens. I guess that probably good times now come on to Brexit and then obviously the pandemic. In part of the journey.
I'll never forget Brexit. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's right.
So
I want you to.
I had a 6:00 meeting at Spitalfields Market in London. 6 a.m. Why the fuck I did that, I don't know. And it was the day the vote was announced. And you could have heard a penny drop. I just remember because you buy coffee in dollars, right? So the pound is, you buy Arabica coffee in dollars, so the pound versus the dollar is a big effect on cost of coffee in the UK. And the pound just went boom, didn't it? She just dived. And I could have heard her. Jeez. Yeah, I think people were like, what have we done?
How's it affected you?
We can't import. Effectively, it is commercially unviable to import into Europe and into Ireland. We've lost all our Spanish business because they won't let coffee in over £5 a kilo. We lost 100 grand a year plus of Spanish revenue, Balearics, Canary Islands. Our European business, we are only keeping it going because of our relationship in the UK and the US with that company, and because we hope to find a way to make it viable. I mean, it has made it time, paperwork, logistics. There are companies out there taking advantage of the unknowns. So I can only speak from my sense, but
your own personal experience.
It has been a disaster.
Okay,
It's
your truth.
Yeah,
right?
I cannot see. It's been a disaster to travel, to move.
What do you reckon it's cost your business from a growth perspective, or even just the business you've lost because of that decision?
Well, we closed our French boutique, strained relationships. I think it probably a business our size. It's probably cost us, cost-wise, it's put well over 100. It's put probably 2 full-time wages in for the time, and then revenue-wise, it's probably cost us on the growth trajectory where it's probably it's halved our European growth, and so we've now got to pivot and find a way to then overcome that. So I guess if you ask me in time, it's probably put us back 3 or 5 years,
okay,
possibly longer.
Man, it's tough, isn't it? Tough, being a business owner and having external decision making. And look, there's always winners and losers from lots of things. And it's not a conversation necessarily about what the right decision is. It's just having your story and your truth about how that decision. And obviously, it's had a really big impact. I think while we stay on that topic of disruption, I know you're probably one of the people that I know that's been affected the most. You are the person I know that's been affected the most from the pandemic. From a business perspective, and again, I know people that have been big winners, and I know ones that have been big losers, and I think you definitely sit on that side. So while we're staying with how hard business can be, talk to us about your experience through the pandemic.
So in 2019 we bought a new building in Southampton. Roasting coffee is very capital intensive. If you look at in the B2B world, if you look at the big brands in the coffee world, so if you look at Starbucks. If you look at Illy, Lavazza, they are built over decades, even over hundreds of years, and they are often family owned. If you look at the high street, Starbucks, Costa, Pret, other brands in the US, they're often they start small. Starbucks was a beautiful, beautiful coffee company once upon a time in the 70s, but to scale on the high street, you need deep pockets. So you are VC or PLC, and that then changes the dynamic straight away. As a coffee roaster, our revenues are much lower than the high street, our margins are higher. But to roast coffee, you've got to go and buy plant and machinery that cost millions. You've got to finance that over 7, 10, 20 years. So if you sign up buy a £5 million coffee roaster over 10, 20 years, that's a solid investment by you until your business loses 97% of its revenues overnight. And you're turning around to your funders and saying, I can't pay you. And then you're in a situation when, because you're not a sexy business, you're a dirty manufacturing business, your business doesn't sell newspapers, your business isn't front and centre on the headlines, and so there was a huge swathe of business that was a loser in the pandemic because it's probably out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, no.
So, for example, business rates. Our customer base had 2021 0, 21 22 0 for 6 months, 33% for quarter 3, 66% for quarter 4. A business like mine, 100% all the way through. How's that fair? How can I pay a business rate when you shut my customer base down?
Yeah.
So we were basically put in a decision. I was personally given no option in April 2020. It was take on £1 million of debt, not to move forward. The other decision was to go personally bankrupt and lose 10 plus years of work, and the impact of going bankrupt both on the business and all its stakeholders, my family, etc. So it was April 2020 to, and look, even now, we are still paying that debt. That debt is not creating jobs. That debt is not moving Mozzo forward. It's doing nothing for UK PLC other than paying for the right not to go bankrupt. So I have a very sometimes maybe controversial, but I just think commercially.
So I don't think it's controversial. I think this is the sometimes the untold stories of the pandemic from a business leader perspective, right? So you, for context, 2019, you move into a new manufacturing unit, right? You're really investing in growth, like you mentioned. These machinery does cost a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? So you're gearing up. February 2020, the pandemic hits. A lot of your customer base. So what's the percentage of B2B distributors that are from your revenue, and then I guess direct to consumer?
It's direct to consumer is less than, do the math, 10 into that goes, it's less than 3% of what we do.
Okay, so 97% of what you do is going into the Four Seasons, coffee shops, etc., right?
Yeah.
So 2020 comes around, the country gets locked down, and all of these places can't open. You're a coffee business supplying those industries, and your revenue drops from...
So our revenue drops from, 5 million to 5 grand.
I know, right? Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Like, as in, you're running a business and you build over that time, you've got a very sensible business, and then overnight, 97% of your revenue plus disappears. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got to take on £1 million worth of debt just to keep the doors open and survive what is,
and what issues me is, and also then payback. So bounce back loans you can take over 10 years. They're up to 50 grand. Or, as we all know, many people just walked away from the bounce back loan. That was a very poorly thought out product. Appreciate people had little time to do it, but in times of crises, you do need to stop, step back, think, then act. The loan that we took out was 80% backed by the government, called the Sybils, and then you had the one even bigger company than ours. I can't remember what it's called. I think that's if you're borrowing 5 million or more. That wasn't a level that we needed or had access to. Any loan backed by the government has to be paid down within 5 years. So you've got hundreds, probably thousands of companies being forced in 5 years to pay back a huge amount of money that is basically caps your ability to invest and innovate. So if I wasn't personally going bankrupt, I'd have pulled it down. Because why should I and why should my team shoulder poor decision making? I'd still have to bite my tongue now when people say it's over. It's not over if you work at Mozzo. That is hurting everybody that works for me. That is the biggest paycheck each month is to the COVID loan. And then you've got rising interest rates. Obviously, that has an impact on the debt you're paying back. So it's, I think May 2027. I'm not sure if we'll even celebrate. I think we'll just say, I don't know. Probably won't say what I'm going to say down here, but just
May 2027.
May 2027. Thanks for coming.
Man, I really appreciate the honesty. How, if you don't mind, how has that been for you personally as a leader trying to manage all of that stuff? How have you been able to get through it? 'Cause what a hell of a stressful time.
I guess it's like any, and look, I can appreciate, I don't know, maybe in 2014, I got the chance to go to the DRC, the Congo. It's Eastern Congo is a war zone. More people have died there since the Rwandan genocide than died in the Second World War. We conveniently brush that under the carpet in the West because to expose that truth would make us look in the mirror, and probably we don't like to think about that. And I fell in love with the Congo in 2014. Its innocence, its rawness, its humanity. It is brutal and barbaric, and it challenges you in every way. So what leaders like myself, I say myself because I'm not the only one, it's not a playing Mozzo small violin, but I think what people that have been involved in businesses like mine have been through is traumatic. Because you just think, you question your, you question the validity of the word democracy when someone comes and says, basically, eat this debt or go bankrupt. You have no choice. You've got, I'll give you an example, we got the second Sybil's loan in the country. The second.
Right.
And I was contacted by the national broadcaster and they said, will you come on and celebrate it? I was like, are you
taking the piss?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, celebrate it. I was like, mate, have you got a mortgage? Yeah, I've got a mortgage. Cool. Right. Your mortgage has quadrupled and you're not getting paid for 2 years. Do you want to come on TV and celebrate that fact? You probably don't. Like, and look, the repercussions we've had to, because of and this is where it's cause and effect, isn't it? So I own the building that my business sits in, and one of the reasons you see that is when you have to capitally invest, you want to take debt over long term. You can't leave yourself exposed to a landlord who's going to keep driving up prices, right? Or kick you out. You've got to have, if it costs millions to build a business and even more to move it, you don't want to move, so you've got to own the land. So you buy the land. But then you get a COVID debt bashed on you, and the government says you've got 5 years to pay it back. Someone stands up and says, no, don't worry, we'll stretch it to 10. And of course, they don't do what they would say they were going to do. So then you're faced with no choice but to remortgage your land. So then your mortgage goes bang. So you just, there's no kind of easy way out. But to come back to your original question, I don't think I did always handle it well.
I wouldn't have expected you to.
I think I think you're
still going.
Yeah, still going. And actually, I think through being I don't know what my leadership style is, and because I'm a leader by accident, not by I want to go and be a leader. Is I think vulnerability, being open, honest, transparent with your team, helps get you through. Because when tough decisions need to be made, they know you're making it. You're not just making it. You are thinking about it. You're living it. And you're talking it with them. And we're still making tough decisions.
Has that always been your leadership style? Being vulnerable, being open, and taking everyone on the journey with you, or was that something that was more out of necessity from the pandemic?
No, I think it was there before, and it's been. And I think actually post-pandemic, I'm really trying to, and I want to invest in myself. We've always at Mozzo invested a lot in our people relative to the size of our business. We've invested in their scientific college, coffee knowledge, accountancy, work. If someone wants a particular skill set, we've invested it. I've probably been guilty of not investing in me.
Okay. What's springing to mind?
Probably the ability to just understand how one thinks.
Okay.
And then how one communicates, how one comes across. Like, sat with you today, I don't know how I come across.
Amazing.
Apart from.
I love spending time with you. Do you know what I mean?
But it's, I think, knowing when to be transparent, when to maybe just hold it back. But it has and is hard, and I think you hear people going through trauma, and you get shock, you then get anger. I don't know the phases of trauma, but I know that I will, that I have those surges of anger, and I have to. Things can trigger it. Being asked to put a mask on, or being just in ways you're like, hold on a minute, like just stop, and you just have to. So there are flashpoints sometimes you don't handle well. it will always be there, and I think it has scarred many companies financially, but also emotionally. I mean, for us, it's made us more determined to do it our way. Like, someone I really respected at the time said to me, "You're going to have to turn your foundation off," because we have a foundation. So every time we sell some coffee, we contribute to our foundation. We call it our social dividend. And I was advised by someone at the time, "You're going to have to turn that off." I was like, turn it off? The people we buy coffee from live off 50 cents a day. I never heard one sentence about, if we shut our economy down and build a wall, we're okay, because we've got, okay, it's creaking, we've got the NHS, we've got all of these luxuries. But there are people out there that if they do not sell to us, they can't afford to eat.
As you say that, and you mentioned earlier about the, I guess, the resilience around going through the pandemic, and you'd been to the Congo. Do you think your perspective on life that you've derived from visiting that place in particular has given you a certain perspective and gratitude for, even though you've been under so much pressure and stuff, that you've been able to draw on that?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I do believe that. I think I was lucky enough that Mozzo had grown a bit, and I'd had a couple of luxuries. They obviously all went. I lost a lot of. My parents owned 5% of Mozzo, so when I started Mozzo, I'd paid them back, but I didn't want to. I liked the fact they owned 5%. And 2019, they sold that 5% along with an amazing gentleman who, without, I wouldn't be sat here today, Gavin Eddy. And so Gavin and my parents sold their stake in 2019. My parents gave me their money back to put into the help Mozzo move. They've never been paid a penny back. It was a lot, for my parents, a life-changing amount of money. They didn't have it. Can you miss something you don't have? Well, they did. They have it for a day, and then they gave it to me. Yeah, I think so. I think when you go somewhere where people live by the sun, so when the sun rises, they get up. When the sun sets, they stop. When you go somewhere that is about survival every single day, you kind of can take the nice things, hopefully, with a bit more understanding, that respecting it what it is for what it is, but also not making a judgment if someone has it or they don't have it. And it's funny, every time I was recently in Nicaragua, and the remote parts of Nicaragua were beautiful, and the again, very similar to the Congo, kind of, they were rough, they were raw. And you go in, I remember going into a coffee farmer's house, and him and his wife had set us up lunch, and it was just a very basic broth. I think he said they ate chicken once a month, and it was vegetables, but that day they ate chicken in the broth because they had visitors. And on the walls, he had two daughters, and then one of his daughters, they lived in the same house, had her daughter, and on the walls was the American dream, the white picket fences, Beverly Hills, Miami, the kind of those type of images. You think, they're never getting there. I don't know. Maybe they weren't. They're living $1 a day. They're never getting the American dream. But every time I go there, they want what we've got.
Yeah.
I'm desperate for what they've got. I'll give up. You can have my iPhone. You can have what we strive for every day. What we've got to beat each other up to get. And I'm like, no, don't do, like,
we haven't got it right.
We haven't got it right.
Yeah.
We fucking haven't got it right. And that's the thing that pisses me.
I think there's got to be such a recalibration. And when I go, so that story really resonates with me. When I go and spend time in Croatia, obviously not completely not in the same context around where they are from, I guess, from an economic perspective. But one thing that the Croatians do amazing when I'm there is just and Barbados also, the culture around community. Like, you go to Barbados, everyone's smiling. I'm like, Jesus. That's why the purpose of life, fulfillment, whatever word, just being happy, right? There's billionaires that are miserable.
Yeah.
Like, they've got a gun to their head, right?
Yeah.
They're distracted and lonely, and what life. If you lived in that body for a while, somebody that was truly happy, that's where you want to be all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we haven't got it all right, and I think that's one thing that we've really got to work on in our culture. And I definitely see is just.
Yeah.
Less distraction, more happiness, more connection. More connection to one another. And I think when you go to those places, I really see it. Like, who's got this right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's things there that haven't been got right, but hopefully, those countries, those economies, those if you like, wider populations can get the chance to grow and develop and maybe end up in a slightly different place to us.
What's the future for Grant Lang and Mozzo Coffee?
What's the future? Immediate future is off to Bournemouth after this to go and see a very nice new hotel. So I think for us, we actually, on a serious note, our ability and also our ability to continue to invest in the UK is currently at risk. Our desire is there. I grew up in the UK. I want to contribute positively to the UK. I'm never going to build the biggest company. Doesn't mean it's lack of ambition. But we've got a growing business in the US. And right now, if you ask me, whilst the US has many structural challenges and problems, and I'm lucky enough to travel to different parts of the US and get different perspectives. But from a purely commercial perspective, the right decision for us would be to invest in the long term for the US. And that makes me sad. It makes me sad that the UK is currently in a place where it's not attractive to invest. From my perspective, it will be, I'm sure, from other businesses, because, as you said earlier, where there is winners, there's losers. But if we push away making stuff, manufacturing, we make coffee, it's really simple. Look at this place. They make, I asked the chap earlier, I think they start above 1 and they go to nearly 30, but they make fucking cool boats that go around the world. Imagine if we lose this. Can't let this go. And we want to live in a world that's instant gratification. We want to push, if it's a bit dirty, we want to push it away. Well, I've tried to go to mines in the Congo where, take for example the electric cars we all drive.
Yeah.
I've tried to go to mines twice to see what they're like. Both times I've not been allowed to go because workers have been shot on the morning I'm going, so there is a bit of unrest at the workplace. We just push those conversations away, yet we want to jump into an electric future, or leaders do. So what's the future for Mozzo? Don't want to sell it. I think possibly we are considering, from a strategic point of view, I think we definitely got to split IP and assets. It's interesting, does Europe or the UK look the better long-term bet for kind of, I'm going to call European investment and include the UK in that? I don't know, still to play out. Really excited about the US, really excited. Give you an idea of scale, we've got a company that we work with out there. They call themselves a medium player. This one company roasts more coffee in a year than the entire UK consumes, and they call themselves a medium player. I mean, it is off the wall mental.
Yeah, that's big.
It's nuts.
That is exciting.
So that's really exciting. And I don't know. I love American football for my sins, but I love the competition, the wanting to be better. Team? Oh, he's my favourite team. Oh, Christ, good question. I actually wanted the Bengals to win this year because it was like the underdog story. As a kid, I supported Denver Broncos, but I'd fallen out of love with them because of the way they treat their people. So I should stick with the Denver Broncos, but they tanked this year. They're awful, and some of the way, I'm not too impressed with how their values. So, I can't pick Josh.
You're big on values, aren't you? We'll come back to that, your personal life, shortly, but you're big on values, and you mentioned your parents quite a lot in this podcast, and I've known you for a long time. You're definitely a man of integrity. You're definitely, when I watch you, the way you look after your stuff, and you're driven. It feels to me like you're really driven by, and who you work with, by your values. You say that's fair?
Yeah, I'd say it's fair. I don't always get it right, but if I get it wrong, hopefully reflect on it and learn from it. So.
Okay, let's do a quick fire round, okay? So, best 3 bits of a business advice you'd give to an entrepreneurial audience or somebody just setting up their business?
Someone just setting up?
Yeah.
Don't undervalue your brain or sweat capital. First bit of advice. So if you're seeking to raise investment for a new venture, don't undersell yourself. There is a lot of money out there still. Raising money is hard, but it is not as hard as A, the idea, and then B, getting out there and doing it. Money's, dare I say it, money, if you get out there and do it, and your idea's half decent, and you're a determined little bugger, then there'll be enough people out there that'll back you. So don't undersell yourself.
Number 2.
Fuck. Number 2. Oh, crikey, you put me on the spot there, Josh. Number 2. I just think it's a bit on determination. I'm going to steal what Gavin said to me when I started. And he just said, Grant, the difference between those who make it and those who don't is they just never give up. So don't give up.
Value yourself, never give up. Number 3.
Be prepared to hold your hands up, say I've made a mistake, we're going to stop doing that and we're going to pivot and do this. So if it's time to shut it down, like I moved from coffee carts to wholesale, I've had 2 cafes, I've shut them. You know, if I put on paper how much money my decisions have cost my company over the years, I'd have been potentially fired many times over. But you got to know when it's time to.
Don't be too proud. Go back to what you said.
Don't be too proud.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's much better advice out there, but.
No, mate, that was amazing. I love that. Right, 3 on you. Like, what gets Grant Lang motivated? You know, hobbies, interests. Like, what are Grant Lang's favourite things in the world?
Well, my favourite thing. I was about to say something you would have gone. Grant, you are the boringest person in the fucking
Mate, say
world.
it.
No,
I want to hear it.
It's
No,
fucking recent, right?
Go for it.
So I like cars. I like a particular brand of German car. And I bought myself a Lego one recently. Fucking love it. If I get what oh shit.
That's right. It's only water.
It's only water.
It's only
one
water,
night
God.
one night every 2 weeks.
You know, I did
to
warn you
build my
about
Lego
spilling
car.
stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, right. Stick with.
So, shit. I knew I'd spill something. What gets me? I got to say, like.
So Lego.
No, yeah, Lego. Just like my 2 kids. I think they, me and my partner separated in 2019. Then they've been through the kind of COVID years with me and Mozzo. But they helped give me real perspective, I think. So, seeing them grow up, develop, become their own people. So yeah, don't get to spend as much time with them as I'd like. But
One of your favourite places to be, right?
Yeah, just seeing them, whatever they're doing, swimming lessons, trying to learn.
Number 3, you mentioned American football. I mean, you can have that. You can have something different.
Yeah, exercising, running. Like, did a lot of ultra marathons. 2018, 19, 2020. Body fell apart. Do a few now. Just getting out there. Kind of the challenge of. I'm no Mo Farah, but can I run 30 miles, 50 miles? Can you get inside your head when you want to stop? So, yeah, enjoy. Like, I don't know. Basically look after yourself. Someone once said to me, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And business is a marathon, not a sprint. And you gotta, have a good time, let your hair down, but look after yourself as well. Take personal responsibility for that. I'm not sure Lego is one of my 3 favourite things, but right now, a Negroni and some Lego.
Oh, Negroni, what a drink. My favourite drink, for sure.
Yeah, if you don't like Negroni, you can't work at Mozzo.
That at the end of a week, or like definitely a busy week, definitely takes the edge off,
It does take the edge off.
Really does.
And they've become...
Do you know what? Have you ever been to Bombay Sapphire up in the distillery?
Yes.
Like their HQ?
Yeah, fucking impressive.
I did a thing there, and they gave me the story of the Negroni, right? Some Italian... like business owner basically was like, going to the same bar and be like, I need a drink, but it needs to be something a bit stronger. And he kind of came out of it. They said, take the soda. And I'm like, that really resonated. I was like, I love it.
They take the edge off. And it's like Aperol. When I remember as a kid, my dad, in his 70s now, he'd drink Aperol as a kid. Well, not as a kid. Sorry, when I was a kid, he was drinking Negronis. These things blow up. They be, Aperol, it's great branding, isn't it? It just blows up. And you just think, it's funny how Negroni is I think Negroni or the Espresso Martini is competing for one of the 3 or most popular cocktails in the world. I don't know who measures these things.
Nice.
But,
mate, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for coming on today. I super appreciate it. Actually, one of my favourite discussions, I'd say, like hands down, really around the rawness of listening to a business owner and just talking about how difficult and painful it can be, and still the resilience you've shown to come out the other side and be excited. about expansion. So
the future's got to be bright, isn't it?
It has to, mate. And but the thing is, it's not always easy, and you're sitting there at home and all those things. So I really appreciate you sharing. I guess, where can people find you? Like, the website, where can they pick this up?
Well, at the moment, they'll soon probably find me working at Sunseeker now. I've spilt water on their sofa because I'll probably be, my COVID loan's one problem. This boat probably costs a lot more, so I'll be working here for a few years paying it off. Where can they find Mozzo? Yeah. Where can I find? So look, the roastery's in Southampton. We're developing it all the time. We've just been putting a silo system in. Like, if you're ever in Southampton, look us up. Monday to Friday, the team are always there. Pop in. We'll make you a coffee. We'll pile. If you don't like coffee, we've got a great couple of great tea partners. So people are welcome to drop into the roastery anytime. Be nosy. We'll always like to show them around. We are available online, mozzocoffee.com. April, we're launching our new website. Really excited about that, but we do have a little e-commerce shop, and we have some wonderful customers on that. So that's great. And then you can find us in cafes, bars, hotels around Hampshire, into London, up into Scotland, in Paris, if I'm allowed, like New York, San Francisco, LA. It's a good journey, like I'm better to be lucky than good, Josh. Yeah. That's definitely the one,
Look, ladies and gents, if obviously you want to support Mozzo Coffee, and if you go to some venues and they haven't got it, make sure you tell them they should have it. Like I said, Grant, thanks for being here. My last question to all the guests is, Grant Lang, you get a dinner party, okay? You have 3 guests, dead or alive. Who would be at Grant Lang's dinner party?
Jeez. Fuck. You told me this one as well. I had time to think
That's
about
the only question I said.
And I didn't even get any thought. I put the phone down and you made another phone call, and who would be mine? Okay, talking to leaders, I think during COVID there was a real lack of strong leadership. I mean, globally, certainly in the Western world. I grew up too young to remember her. I don't, but I would. This is controversial. I'm going to say Margaret Thatcher, because there was a lady that wasn't afraid to stand alone and wasn't afraid to be unpopular and take the long-term decisions are often not popular. And the problem is, we live in a world now where it's, I'll be out in 5 years, sell my book, go and be on the board of Morgan Stanley, whatever it is, I'm job done, I'll make a few. So, Margaret Thatcher. I tell you what, I'm going to just pick him because he's in the news. Tom Brady, to play that sport and be at the top for 23 years. Like, what drives him? He must just... I want to suck something out of him. Like, the guy's got magic, hasn't he? And then, so I've got one from the world of sports, one from the world of politics. Don't know how they get on. Partly want to say, I've got 2 children, so I can't take them, but I partly want to put, just children ask the best questions, right? They ask through a purity, a naivety, and innocence, and that's knocked out of us. Like, I say to my kids, never lose your creativity, because they go to school and you think, what are we doing to the kids? So I can't choose one of my children, but I can't take someone else's child. That would just be fucking wrong. But I just look. My daughter Isabel, she asks questions like, "That is a great question," and you see people go, "Huh?" and just puts them on the spot. So she would ask Margaret and Tom.
Tom, great questions. I tell you what, you can have both your kids, and Margaret and Tom, they can have you do
job
the question.
done. Is that all right?
That's
look,
perfect,
they're born
mate.
on the same day, 3 years apart, so that's got to count. They're not twins, but so there we go.
Grant
Obviously,
Lang,
they can sit on the same seat, all right? They're small.
They can share. There's only 4 tables. There's only 4 seats there.
Okay, I'll stand. I'll be the waiter. So
make the coffee.
I'll make the coffee. There's people at Mozzo who tell you, don't let Grant make the coffee. Let him do the spreadsheets. And I'm a very lucky young man. I'd just say thank you to everyone at Mozzo for sticking through it, because it has been brutal and it still isn't easy, but they're a really good bunch, and just thank you. And thank you to you, Josh, as well, because I'm allowed to say this.
Say whatever you like.
So when did we meet, Josh?
Well, mate, we must have met probably a good 8 years ago, I reckon.
Okay. And
we met in Starbucks.
We met in Starbucks, opposite Southampton train station.
We did.
And Josh is younger than me. If there's any videos, I'm the guy that spilt the water down his trousers. Nothing new there, but Josh you probably see, looks a lot younger than me. But I remember meeting you, Josh, and I was like, that young man has got something. You can just tell. He's got hunger, he's got drive, he's got desire, but he's also got integrity. He's got values. whatever Josh does, he will be successful. He'll find a way. He'll pivot. He won't give up. I still believe that. I carry a bit of shame that I'm not a proactive partner in Bizpedia. I've tried. It's a big believer you get out what you put in. You can't expect to get before you give. And my excuse is the travel, but I find the travel to be part of the Bizpedia network very difficult. I'm hoping one day maybe my travel slows down and I can be part of your network. But what you do it's awesome. It is. I don't know anyone that's doing anything like it. I don't know how you've done it. I mean, you're fucking cool. Just, but you don't try to be. You just are. And I'm really looking forward to where Bizpedia goes, because one day I'll be like, yeah, I've spent some time with that guy. In fact, he's drunk my coffee in the past. I mean, you'll probably be rubbing shoulders with George and Nespresso and all of that guy. So,
never forget where you come from.
Mate,
that's definitely the ambition. But
so I'll see you in Starbucks 8 years' time.
Mate,
Southampton train station.
Do you know what? I remember that meeting really, really well, because I remember being in Starbucks and sitting down with you the first time. I was like, man, fuck, there's levels in business, and I'm way away from it. The detail of you knowing your numbers in that meeting. I tell people that story all the time. I'm like, I sat with Grant Lang from Mozzo Coffee, and we're sitting in Starbucks opposite the train station, and he's taking me through all the numbers. You knew how much like coffee would be in a mug, to how many coffees you get out of a machine, like just your whole outlook on the numbers. I was like, that really blew me away. And I really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed knowing you, and I'll continue. Hopefully our friendship, I'm sure, will continue for as long as we're out here hustling and trying to build our companies. But mate, I really appreciate today, and I look forward to supporting you wherever I can, and just being inspired by what you're doing. And I really appreciate today. So
likewise, thanks for having us on.
Top man. Cheers, Grant.